Hey everyone, it's Will, GamerDad, with another video for you. So in today's video, I'm going to show you the side quest for Starky. And in this quest, if you're successful in beating the final boss, you will get Serge's personal weapon. Now if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel, I really appreciate it. I also do have a Patreon account for those who want to support me this way. So this quest does begin in I guess the alternate time layers of Unigan, the beast one. So Unigauna, I guess. And so we do find out that we have to look for Glenn since he disappeared after the complex dream where he interacted in the underground with, of course, Deidre and Annabelle. So let me know in the comments below how you've liked the new simultaneous release of Starky as a 5-star, of course, as well as the Mythos Chapter 6. Now for myself, I actually did not get a chance to finish Chapter 6 just yet. Most of my time was obviously to play with the Starky, to get him, of course, and also do this quest. And of course, this boss fight took forever to kind of conquer. So if you're wondering of the timeline, remember that this update only occurred about 24 hours ago, and I actually had to sleep and also go to work, so I do apologize for the delay. I'm obviously not global first in clearing, however, I'm still proud that I came up with a strategy that seemed to work for me. And of course, by now there are other videos that you can also check out if you feel that this one is a little bit too difficult to follow. I will say that although it's not RNG based, there is a lot of skill in calculating exactly which moves and how much damage you want to do, and I'll explain that a little bit later on. Keep in mind, the boss's attack are mostly Crystal Pierce, although it does have a magic component for one of his signature moves, which is the Starburst, kind of the Gundam robot super attack. Also, magic attacks are resisted, and so don't bring your magic team. In my first few attempts, I actually didn't know the mechanics yet because clearly as a, what is obviously new to the game, I wasn't sure if getting the enemy down to a certain level in terms of their power would allow me to use magic attacks, being that in this case Starky is a crystal unit, and I thought that crystal will work against crystal AE, including things like using Clark or Eva. And so unfortunately I can save you the trouble. Don't bother with magic unless you really want to try to make yourself suffer and potentially use Eva to punch through that resistance. Alright, so one other thing to note is that with this fight, if you are unsuccessful, you do not get to skip the dialogue. That was extremely painful, had many attempts, and you just have to either record each and every time, in my case where I want to share these videos with you. And yeah, you're wasting essentially even 30 seconds to a minute just to spam through the conversation. Now that being said, this quest, although it is short other than the fight itself, is pretty interesting that if you've already done Starky's quest, you'll know that the manager is almost like a pseudo-villain in this case. And he gets corrupted by some powers, and he becomes extremely large. So in terms of team comps, I would definitely recommend Slash. You'll also need a lot of single target attacks. AoEs are very restrictive, and again, I'll show you that a little bit later in this fight. If you use Pierce, obviously you're going to power up their Pierce attacks, and so you'll need even more mitigation as well. This one also does pack a punch, and you do need some stall techniques in terms of whittling it down power-wise until you can actually find a vulnerable hole. So this is almost very similar to something like LeBlanc or Quodokson, which is some of the super bosses that have been introduced to us up to date. So, as you can see, now we're into the fight directly. The new manager is now going to be renamed, and we're going to take him down. Alright. I do like the music. I understand that some of you have commented that this is actually a complex stream boss fight, so it's really nice that they kept that. Okay, so the key to this is you can only kill one minion at a time. If you kill both in one turn, you will recharge those 10 stacks on each side to max, and so you don't want to do that. That essentially resets the fight because for every stack, each one is representative of something. So for the first one, it is his basically his attack power. For the second one, it is his barrier. And note that he does have a permanent barrier that cannot be dispelled, so no banish is going to work here. You want to if you kill off one minion, each of the orbs will drop by 1 to 9, 8, so on and so forth, and you can get it as low as 1. It does not disappear to 0. So here we are, 2-turn AF right away. I am using obviously a mixed team with Serge's Magic Slash Zone, and I will say I haven't used him in a boss fight until now. He is definitely very, very good. Allows you to blend, staff and slash units, and being that the majority of the fight is against Pierce, that is advantageous for you. Again, the purpose of the 2-turn AF is to make sure you stack as many stacks on Kid as well as Serge. Serge is not necessarily as important to get to 10 stacks. Kid is absolutely necessary, otherwise you will lose with this team. I tried different team comps in terms of what kind of defensive capabilities you need, and in my case, I did need Cat Daddy Guardian, which is 35-35 physical and type resistance. You also need a fully powered Z Steel, which is, by the way, at 10 stacks, minus 45 power, int, and speed to the enemies, and plus 45 on your side. If you only use the Starburst debuff, which is 30-30, you will die. Your team will die, Starky will live, but, well, you know, that is over. At this point, in this case with my team, you're trying to get it so that you can kill off one each turn, because if you don't kill off one that turn, he'll build his power stacks by 1, and the orb will go up by 1. So it's really a matter of planning to mix in between single target attacks and AoEs, because you still want to maintain that Z Steel every other turn at the very least. And obviously, if you need to use single target, you can use a Sky Arrow for Serge, or in the case of me, I prefer to use Heat Shot, because you'll see what Serge is responsible for next. Now, at this point, this is exactly the setup you really want. You want to really watch and make sure you refresh your Cat Daddy Guardian every 3 turns as needed. But what we're doing here is we're going to use Shining and Z Steel. And if you had left one minion up at about half HP, the Shining will wipe out the vast majority of it, if not all of it, and the Z Steel will do just enough damage so that it has almost like a 2/3 or half on the remaining minion. If you kill one minion, the big guy does resummon one and take one orb down in the process. So basically, you just repeat this cycle of using Shining as well as Z Steel. Now, every so often, you may have to change it up, and this is a lot of trial and error. I did not film those attempts, but the thing is, there may come a time that you need that counter from Starburst, and remember that Starburst counter lasts for about 5 turns. Basically, if he is hit by a physical attack, he'll cast AoE heal that removes status as well. And so this fight is a lot of status, mostly sleep. So definitely for your main healer, you would use a sleep resistance badge, which clearly Starky does have, and he is definitely an awesome tank. I will be doing a 5-star review of him sometime this weekend. I'm actually going to take a break, put a lot of hours into this particular fight. I would say probably between, I'm going to say 5 to 6 hours of experimentation. All right. Alternatively, I believe you can use Harle with her Lunar Protection as well as anti-crystal equipped move in order to protect yourself against the majority of the attacks. These are all crystal type attacks, and so really you can use a high level type shield, and obviously for some of them you can use a physical shield as well. You do need both, but definitely if you have mainly against crystal, you'll also do very well. I opted not to use Harle because I wanted an all slash team, and I really wanted to use Nokoko to generate a lot of DPS, because the thing is, this boss does have an HP stopper, and I wasn't sure if I can even hit it, because the fact is, you know, the barrier is still up even at 1 stack. It'll have a 10% reduction of damage, and I just wasn't sure, and I honestly didn't want to try hundreds of times to see exactly how much damage I have. So if you're wondering, each of the minions, also including the boss, will put a dual debuff on your units. If you do not use proficiency debuff resistance Grasta, you are not going to do enough damage. And so in the loadout, you'll clearly see that I use 1 debuff resistance Grasta on each of my main DPS. Nakoko is actually carrying a Fire Zone Grasta, and Starky is carrying one of the newer Grastas from the boss rush, which is basically a 5 times fire blunt attack. And so, yeah, I initially first round in the AF activated Fire Zone, and note that it's called Fire Slash, but if you look at it, it's actually called, the Grasta was called Fire Rush, which is a 5 times XL blunt attack. Remember, the whole point here is not only are you needing to do enough damage, you want to wipe out 1 minion in the process. Also note that I have you want a really high combo multiplier to get all those hits in at maximum damage, because if you have less multi-hit units, and Serge is a great multi-hit unit, obviously Nakoko does a 4 times XL hit as well, and being that she adjusts to the element, you now get that. Not only that, she boosts crit damage by 50% and guarantees crit moves for a number of turns as well in zone. So this is exactly why I chose her over a more defensive type unit, and she does have defensive units moves as well. If you're wondering why I didn't choose a heal move for her, Starky's counter heal is usually enough for this particular fight, and I didn't find that I needed any additional healer to share the burden. Alright, so at this point, remember that in the AF I actually cast Red Needle, and that one is the one that reduces physical resistance by 70, fire resistance by 70, and increases your fire type attacks by 70. And so the trick is that lasts for 3 turns. If you use Zed Steel after this first AF, it will wipe out both mobs, and your fight will be over. Both mobs die, he recharges to 10 stacks, and he starts healing for essentially all of his life back. So do not do that. It took a lot of experimentation not to die. So even in the AF, keep in mind I cast Red Needle first, because you don't want to kill both mobs, remember, and it's 3 to 5 hits random in terms of randomness. It doesn't always hit 5 times. And then I cast Zed Steel to boost our team damage by 45%, and then went to town on the boss. And so note that I am using Starky for the main dual debuff, which is Starburst, and keep in mind that, again, just like before, you don't want to do too much damage to either minion, just enough to kill one and leave the other roughly at half. So Shining is still great. Starburst, note that it is now in Fire Zone, so it does very little, and Heat Shot is goes through to the boss. Now, one interesting trick, if you press and select your target as one of the minions, any leftover single target damage will directly hit the boss instead of the other minion. So that saves you a lot of headache in terms of, oh no, if I hit one mob, then I'll hit the other mob and then I'm screwed. No, the mechanic is actually pretty good where the target goes all the way to the back instead of laterally to the other minion. If you're wondering why I'm pausing in between each move, this was the furthest time I got, and after a lot of trial and error of not killing the 2 mobs after the first AF, getting to the HP stopper was one thing, not killing them after the HP stopper was the other. And so I wasn't sure if I had enough DPS here at about 3/4 of a bar, but I decided to give it a shot. And keep in mind that in the second phase of this fight, if you kill both minions, it really doesn't matter, because if you end the boss, they won't respawn. So same thing, we are using those all fire attacks here, DPS all the way through, and only after everything is done that I just celebrated and just started killing the other things. Remember that if you do kill the boss, your target will move to the next person with some HP left. And so that ended the fight. So long and painful. I don't know if you can shorten it, because you can attack it when it has 2 or 3 or 4 stacks. Keep in mind that every stack that's numbered, from 1 will add an extra 10% permanent barrier to your damage. And note that it also does put up a physical resist. So that's why Red Needle is important for this fight, as well as Zed Steel. And like I said, make sure the order is done properly. Watch closely the moves that I press during the AF in that particular order, because I tried other ways. You'll end up killing both mobs, and then, well, hard reset, throw your pad against the wall, just curse a lot, and, log off after that. Okay, so we are done now. There is a little bit more quest to read, so I'll let you watch the rest of the video in peace. Note that I will show the Grasta loadout at the very end, as well as Serge's new personal weapon that you achieve after that, which is actually not very bad. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.